Costume assistant bought one from a second-hand store. When the actor put the coat on, he turned the pocket inside out. Written in the pocket was the name L. Frank Baum, who is the author of the Wizard of Oz books. Baum's widow later identified the coat as actually having belonged to her husband. The actors of Saving Private Ryan were put through basic training before filming. Except Matt Damon, so that the other actors would build some sort of unconscious resentment towards his character. The military guy training them really got into it. He nicknamed them all Maggot, ran them for several miles a day, fed them food that looked like dog shit, had them sleep outside in freezing weather, etc. It really was a condensed version of boot camp. After a couple of days of absolute hell, the cast was saying okay, we get it, and they talked about bailing. But Tom Hanks convinced everyone to see it through to the end. For that, Hanks was promoted to Maggot number 1. Edit for hyperbole. When writing To Kill a Mockingbird, Harper Lee based Atticus off her father. When the movie was being filmed, she was invited on set. During a scene with Gregory Peck playing Atticus, she broke down in tears. When Gregory asked why, it was because he reminded her so much of her father. She then gave him a pocket watch that had belonged to her father. He wore that pocket watch to the Oscars that year. I found out that throughout the entire Harry Potter movie series, J.K. Rowling had confided in Alan Rickman that Snape was madly in love with Lily Potter. Alan Rickman was the only person she revealed this information to, in order for Alan Rickman to portray Snape's treatment of Harry genuinely. When filming Groundhog Day, Bill Murray was asked to hire an assistant to act as a buffer between him and the studio. He deliberately hired a deaf mute who could only communicate in Native American Sign Language. Not really mind-blowing, but I thought it was funny. When they filmed parts of The Dark Knight in the neighborhood where I was living in Chicago at the time, they put flyers up on all the nearby buildings to announce that they would be filming on certain dates. They used an alias for the name of the movie so they wouldn't attract unwanted attention. The alias was Rory's First Kiss. An Interview with a Vampire. In the night park scene where Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise are walking, a trench was built for Pitt to walk in so that it would appear that the actors were the same height. In LOTR The Two Towers, when Aragorn kicks the helmet in the scene with the burning pile of orcs and Uruk-hai, he actually broke tattoos, so that scream was more than just acting. Same when Boromir got hit with all those arrows. He's dead now. During the boat scene in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, you know, the one where spiders crawl on people's faces, a few of the cast members genuinely got scared because they thought Gene Wilder had gone insane. Gene Wilder said that he would only do the film if Wonka first appeared on screen coming out of the factory hobbling with a cane, only to then lose it and do a somersault. Mark Hamill was incredibly lonely during the filming of The Empire Strikes Back. He has just a handful of mostly brief scenes with other actual human actors. In fact, I think you can count them pretty easily. 1. Recovering from the Wampa attack on Hoth. 2. The attack on the Atard walkers, barely counts, he had a gunner behind him. Briefly. 3. The fight with Vader on Bespin. 4. Recovering post-fight on the rebel ship with Leia and the droids. Virtually every other scene he has in that movie he was interacting with either puppets, Yoda, R2-D2, people in full body suits, Wampa, or special effects, Spirit of Ben Kenobi. He related that during the Dagobah scenes, he would be on the large swamp set and Frank Oz was obviously below him controlling Yoda. Whenever they took a break, Frank would remove himself from Yoda and the puppet would unceremoniously slump over, dead looking. The crew also somehow seemed to vanish almost immediately. So he was left in the middle of this huge swamp set all by himself, feeling forgotten. Every time I watch Empire now, I think about poor lonely Mark Hamill. In the Harry Potter series, Tom Felton, Draco Malfoy, had to have his robe pockets sewn shut, because otherwise he would have been sneaking food on set. On a related note, Dan Radcliffe had a habit of drumming with his wand, and broke upwards of 10 wands on set. When filming Singing in the Rain, Gene Kelly would yell and curse at Debbie Reynolds because she would mess up the dance scenes and cause filming to go longer. It was one of her first movies and she was very young. One day, he got so frustrated. He insulted her dancing. And she ran off set, hid under a piano and cried. Someone roaming around MGM found her. And when she told him that she was having trouble with her dance steps, he helped her out with them. The guy who helped her was Fred Astaire. Paper Street. The street Tyler Durden's house is on. In Fight Club doesn't exist. Paper streets are streets that city planners lay out but never develop. In Fight Club the house is on Paper Street due to the nature of Tyler Durden. To be more precise, map makers used to put fake streets, even whole towns sometimes, on maps. This was so if they found another map with that fake street on, they'd know someone had copied their map. Arnold Schwarzenegger's commentary on Total Recall. It's a semi-illiterate recount on the movie with focus on how nice some of the actors' bobs were looking. It's not just Schwarzenegger, it's Paul Verhoeven too. The Austrian and Dutch accents mixed together are amazing. It's the greatest DVD commentary ever made. The whole time, Verhoeven is like describing why they did this or that. And Schwarzy is like, oh yeah, I hit him really hard in the face. And he fell down. Haha. Yes. The scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark when Indy is facing down that huge dude spinning a sword like a Cuisinart, but rather than even get into the fight, Indy pulls his Smith & Wesson 1917 and shoots. Truth is that Harrison Ford was sick with the flu and didn't want to face a day of shooting and reshooting and reshooting the scene, so he did an on-scene rewrite. And it's a pretty cool scene. The bank heist and subsequent escape scene from Heat is so good and realistic that it is used as a training video for armed forces as a how to withdraw under enemy fire. Michael Mann goes to great lengths to show proper gun usage and handling in movies. Trigger discipline. Proper loading. I seem to remember that Colin Farrell would be able to reload as fast as the fastest guys in law enforcement. David Prowse, who was physically Darth Vader but not his voice, only found out that he was playing Luke's father after the release of Empire Strikes Back. He had been given the line was no. Obi-Wan killed your father. Even Mark Hamill only found out a few minutes before shooting to try and keep the spoiler as secret as possible. Offset. The cast of Avengers would gather together to hang out by sending the text assemble. I think the version I've heard is that they always hung out at bars after filming, and Clark Gregg said how one night he received a text message from Chris Evans that just said assemble. Clark has gone on to say it was the best message he ever received. In Apollo 13, when Tom Hanks, playing astronaut Jim Lovell, steps off the boat, he is saluted by a Navy admiral. That Navy admiral is the real Gin Lovell, Navy captain. Lovell was offered a part as admiral, but he said that he retired a captain, and that's what he would play. Sean Connery beat up a gangster on the set of one of his films. From Wikipedia. In 1958 he had a major role in the melodrama Another Time, Another Place, 1958, as a British reporter named Mark Trevor, caught in a love affair opposite Lana Turner and Barry Sullivan. During filming, star Lana Turner's possessive gangster boyfriend, Johnny Stompanato, who was visiting from Los Angeles, believed she was having an affair with Connery. He stormed onto the set and pointed a gun at Connery, only to have Connery disarm him and knock him flat on his back. Stompanato was banned from the set. Connery later recounted that he had to lie low for a while after receiving threats from men linked to Stompanato's boss, Mickey Cohen. During breaks in filming of Planet of the Apes, 1968, actors made up as different ape species tended to hang out together. Gorillas with gorillas. Orangutans with orangutans. Chimps with chimps. It wasn't required. It just naturally happened. In the fifth Harry Potter movie, Helena Bonham Carter burst Matthew Lewis's, Neville's, eardrum with her wand while she was holding him in the Ministry. The scene where Hermione takes the Polyjuice potion to become Helena Bonham Carter's character to get into her vault in the bank. They had Helena do the scene and then Hermione mimic her, then had Helena mimic her mimicking herself. Heath Ledger as the Joker in The Dark Knight. Clapping ominously at Commissioner Gordon's newest promotion wasn't scripted. Marvelous bit of improv acting that helps make the film. In The Fifth Element, the main antagonist and the main protagonist never actually meet. The movie Armageddon has more factual errors than it has minutes. It has so many, in fact, that it is used by NASA as a training exercise for employees. Duck. I'm late to the party. However, when shooting the Neutron movie, I guess there was some malfunction with the camera equipment. So all workers were left with nothing to do for about 2 hours in the middle of the night. Cue an awesome rave performed by Daft Punk. I would have loved to be there. Edit, for the haters. Here's the article. When they were getting ready to film Taxi Driver, Robert De Niro would take Jodie Foster out to dinner to get acquainted. Sometimes they wouldn't even talk. But De Niro thought it was important that they were comfortable being around each other. I also just realized that Jodie Foster was only 12 when they shot that film. Some of the cast of Predator were made to have handlers on set at all times to stop them from fighting each other. There's an R2-D2 action figure attached to the bottom of the alien ship in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Also, R2 and C-3PO can be seen as hieroglyphics in the Well of Souls scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark. In The Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy and the Scarecrow are in the forest where they find the Tin Man, there is a peacock walking around behind them. This wasn't scripted, and the bird had escaped from a different set and just happened to walk into the shot. In The Office during Michael's last Dundies when everyone starts singing the 9,986,000 minutes song and he tears up. Those are actually real tears. He had no idea they were going to do that. It was kinda their way of saying goodbye. The first Iron Man movie didn't have a script. It was basically all improvisation. Source. Stupid question because I don't know how the business works, but why the hell would Hollywood greenlight such a high budget movie like that? With one of the biggest comic names nonetheless. Without a script? One of my favorites is related to the Blues Brothers. One night, while filming out in the countryside, John Belushi went missing. Dan Aykroyd went out to look for him. Aykroyd walked to a nearby house and knocked on the door. A man opened the door and before Aykroyd could say anything, the man smiled and said, "You're looking for John Belushi, aren't you?" Aykroyd walked into the house to see Belushi sleeping on a couch. The man explained that Belushi had invited himself in, asked for a sandwich and a glass of milk, then crashed on the couch. After that, Aykroyd dubbed Belushi as America's guest. James Earl Jones and Madge Sinclair play Mufasa and Sarah B in The Lion King. James Earl Jones and Madge Sinclair play King Jaffe Joffer and Queen Aeolian in Coming to America. They've played rulers of African kingdoms together in Twice. In Animal House, all the Delta guys stayed together in a hotel and partied, while the douchebag frat guys actors had to stay on other floor to breed resentments. Makeup artist here. If zombie drinking game ever comes out, everyone is actually drunk. In every scene. I stayed sober. I had to man the hairdryer. Liquid latex needs to be dried. In Shaun of the Dead, the reason Ed asks for a cornetto in the morning after they got drunk is because that's what the director used to use as a hangover cure.